Hey there everyone, it's Kari Munson. I am coming to you live to continue talking about my story of being unemployed for a couple of years. As if you've been paying attention to my posts, Brian was laid off of his job this week, and everything is fine. We're doing really well, but it did remind me of what that felt like to lose your job and to be unemployed. That's happened to me twice in the last 9 years. And if you watch my last video or read my blog, you know that it was two very, very different paths. And so I think it's really important to share that. And I know that I'm not alone in going through this type of situation. And so, you know, part of what I care about is helping other people through similar situations and letting them know that they aren't alone. So I am sharing my story, and this is a very public way to do that, but I appreciate all of you who are watching, and yeah, so I'm going to get started here. I will post a lot more detail in my blog. Hey Linda, thanks for popping on. I really appreciate that. It's you know, it's why I'm starting to do this series from my experience, because I know people have gone through layoffs and unemployment a lot. So thanks so much for popping on. I appreciate that. So the first time that I was laid off was in 2008. I had just moved to Colorado 2 years before that for this job and for a big change in my life, and I got it. And that first time, I had never lost a job before in my life. I was very, very lucky in that sense. And I gotta tell you, it really, really messed with my head. Really messed with my head. I had some very, very good friends here in Colorado. I was very fortunate for that, but because I had just moved here 2 years prior, I didn't have a big network here. So I'm very grateful to all those who were here and at my side during that time, because it really messed with me. And at that time in my life, I was not focused on my health at all. So I didn't have the tools to deal with it. And, you know, I was embarrassed. I was mortified. I was depressed. I was disappointed in myself. And the reality is none of that made any sense because, you know, it was a budget restructuring. And it happens to a lot of people, but it didn't change the fact that that's how I felt. And it was a really, really hard time. Really, really hard time. And like I said, I did not have the tools to deal with it. I did not have the tools to deal with it because I was not focused on my health at that time. And not that I wasn't in good health. I was fine. But, you know, I certainly wasn't exercising. I wasn't reading personal development. I wasn't necessarily eating all that well. But I was doing okay. And this was, when I look at it now, one of the turning points to a lot of the health issues that I have had, because I didn't have the right tools to deal with it in a healthy way. And I had pushed those feelings aside, at least to a point, because, you know, I'm kind of person who I get stuff done, and that's how I function, is I get stuff done. And so I just focused on my job of finding a job, which helped in some ways, but you know, was really helped me to also push away a lot of that emotion that I was feeling and not deal with it. So that is not the way to do this. if you've just recently lost your job, this part of my story is the don't do it this way part of the story. So the process, if you've looked for a job recently, you know that the process of searching for a job just feeds the heck out of your insecurities and doubts. And it just makes it that much harder when you're already in a really vulnerable state, to have constant rejection. And I'm really sorry about Rennie right now. She's kind of needy tonight. But that constant state of rejection and feeling, am I good enough? Do I have enough skills? What am I good at? Feeling that beat down, and those voices in your head just keep beating you down and beating you down and beating you down even more when none of that is true. And so you really need to have the right tools in place. And I didn't have those skills in place. I didn't have those skills this first time around in 2008. There were a lot of other things going on, which I will actually talk about later. But during that same time frame, I had never sold my townhouse in Minnesota. It was 2008. There you go. And was upside down in that mortgage. And so that was another whole ball of wax that is getting me really emotional right now. It felt like a lot of failure. Felt like a lot of failure over and over and over. And I wasn't dealing with it in the right ways. So that's as far as I'm actually going to go today, which seems like wah, wah, total downer, and it is. But things get better. We learn from our mistakes. And I can tell you that the things that I have learned, exactly, failure equals lessons. The things that I learned from that time period changed a lot of things for me. Not immediately, because I wasn't ready for that change. But eventually, now I can look back and understand the lessons that I really needed to learn. And but the story of my second layoff is completely different. Completely different. And the story of who I am now is also completely different. So because my dog is being such a little whiner tonight, I'm not going to go any further with that. But I will be posting a blog about this tomorrow, and it gets a little bit more into the details of what I experienced during that process. And I really hope that it helps someone else who's going through a similar situation. Just know that you're not alone, and things do get better. And learning how to better deal with these tough situations is really important. And so at the end of this series, honestly, I don't even know how many parts the series is going to be yet, because it's kind of a big story. But at the end of this series, I will also include some tips for both the person who is unemployed, but also the person who is their loved one, sharing in that journey. So that hopefully you can have a better experience and deal with the situation a little bit better than I did the first time around. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for the views, later views, replay. And I'm going to say goodnight for tonight, and I will have this written up and post the blog on social media tomorrow for you all. So thanks so much for sharing in this very personal journey. Have a good night.